So let's jump out of the data editor and into the layout screen. And what I want to do is just take a little bit of time to explain this screen. So on the left-hand side, we have two things: a list of all the pages that we've added to this application. And you can add a new page by clicking this little plus button. And then beneath that, we're going to have a list of all the components that we've added to this particular screen. And to add a component, you click this little plus button and the components will appear. Now that will only work, these components will only appear if you have a valid source set on the right-hand side of the screen. So for each page, you need to tell the page where is the primary source of information that I'm going to get for this page. And in this case, and in most cases, you just want to set that to users. If this is trying to reference a table that you've deleted, this is going to appear blank. And that's a little error that I was running into. I didn't understand why before. But make sure you select a source, and in this case, we want it to be users. So without further ado, let's start building the actual interface. And we're going to go component by component, step by step. So the first thing we want to do is add a simple title. Now, right now, this is referencing a dynamic value. It's pulling in the name of the user that's looking at the app. And so if I switch from Matteo to myself, you can see that it's changed to my name. But what we want to do is change this from a dynamic value to a custom value, which is a static value, it doesn't change. And this is going to be called new requests. And we want to change the size to extra small. So for now, that's all we want to do here. Let's go on to the next component, which is going to be a hint. And this is going to be a neutral hint. So we change the mood from default to neutral. And this particular hint is going to have some text that I prepared earlier. So we're going to say your new requests will appear here. Now this particular component is going to show up when the user has not placed any new requests. Just give me a moment. My eyes are watering once again for no reason. So it's going to show when the user has not placed any new requests, because we don't want it just to be blank. We want to let them know that you haven't placed any requests, and when you do, they'll appear here. So what we want to do is continue now adding the rest of the components, and then we'll come back and change all the settings here. So we can just duplicate that and change the text and paste that in. So this particular hint or alert is going to show when the user has used up all of their requests for the month. So this one up here is going to have a button that says new request that allows them to place a new request. And this one's going to have a button that says upgrade plan. But for now, let's just continue adding the other components and setting them up in terms of appearance and data. So when you add a new table or a new component, it's going to default to the source that the page is using. So in this case, it's saying, well, you've got a table. We're going to set it to users because that's what the page is set as. But in this case, we want to change this from users to projects. And we want to call it new requests. Then we just want to edit a little bit of the data that it's showing. So we've changed it to projects. It's now pulling in the projects. What we want to do is change the title to the stage name, the description to the name of the project, the meta to the requested date, and the image to the stage icon. Now, you can add column headers, but I like to keep things nice and clean. If people end up complaining they don't understand it, then we can always add it in. But in general, when you're building an app, you want to add as little as possible to get the job done and then build over time. So for now, that's actually all we need to do for this particular component. And what we can do is just duplicate it. And this table is where we're going to show any existing requests. So the top table will show any projects that are queued. And then existing means they've either been accepted, they're in progress, they are needing feedback, or they're complete. So this is basically everything else other than new requests that are in the queue. So we've done this. We've added all the components we need. Now what we need to do is change the or set up the actions for each of these components. So for the top one, we don't need to do anything. We will change the visibility settings later, but we can jump to the hint, the first hint. And what we want to do is head to actions. And let me just quickly get it up on the other screen. So what we want to do is head to actions. We want to change this to new request. And this action, we want it to show a form screen. So you can see that when the user hasn't placed any requests, this notice will appear and it'll say, your new request will appear here. Here's a button to add a new request. And when we click this, it's going to pop up with an overlay and it's going to be wanting to add to the client database, but we don't want that. What we want to do is customize that action. So we want it to change it from overlay to slide in, which means now it's going to slide in, funnily enough. And then what we want to do is change it. We don't want to create a new client. We want to create a new project. And we want to just get rid of all of these different fields that Glide has automatically added. So whenever you're adding a new form, Glide will try and magically create a form for you. So it looks at all the fields you created and then it adds, the appropriate sort of inputs. But we don't need any of that. It's a little bit of overkill. I don't know why they do it, but it is what it is. What we do want to do, however, is start adding the inputs for the pieces of information that we want when someone is creating a project. So what we want to do is add a text entry, and this is going to be name. And I'm just going to get the placeholder for this. This is going to be required. And that's all we need to do for that first one. Then what we want to do is add another text entry. And instead of allowing it, like sending the data from this input to the client ID column, we want to send it to the description column. And I'm going to get the placeholder for this. And I'll just kind of get rid of the formatting. So you can see that now this has a placeholder, and we want to make this large. This is also going to be required. So this input, whatever they type here, is going to be sent to the name column. Whatever they type here is going to be sent to the description column. Then what we want to do is add a switch, and we want to ask them if they require any design text. So what we can say, instead of this, we can say, does your design require text? If they select yes, then we'll have an input that appears. And if they don't, then that input will remain hidden. So let's just go there. The default value is going to be off. We don't actually need to change anything. What we do need to do is add the next field, which is going to be similar to the description. But this time it's going to be sending the information to the design text input or field, column. Gosh, there's so many different words. And this is going to be the design text. So what we want to do is get some of this placeholder text that I had earlier. So ideally, what we want is, if this is unchecked, then this is hidden. If this is checked, then it appears. So rather than do all of that later, let's do that now. And we want to head to the options tab, and we want to show this component when design text required is checked. Right? So if they do need text, then it appears. And if they don't, then it's hidden. Because we want to keep it as compact as possible. We don't need additional things on screen or visible when the user doesn't need them there. So that's all we need to do for that. Then we want to add a choice, and this is going to be writing to. So this is like, okay, they make a choice, they select something. where do you want to send that information? And in this case, we want to send it to the design type ID. The source is not going to be users. We're going to select from design types. The value we want to send to this particular column is not the name. We want to send the row ID. And we want the image to be the icon and the display as to be the name. So what's going to happen is when someone selects this, so let's say they select Facebook post, it's going to send the ID of this design type to the design type ID column. And that's it. That's what it's going to do. So you can see that when they select Instagram, then it'll send the row ID of the Instagram design type. So if we jump over here, it'll send this to the project's design type ID column. So that's how that works. And we want that to be required just so they have to select something. Now, we don't want it to say design type ID. We just want it as design type. And then what we want to do is add a text field, because what if they select other? Well, they need somewhere to type that in. So we're going to create that text field, and this is going to be sending the data to the other design type text field column that we had in the table. And please forgive me if I keep jumbling words, but I think it should be pretty self-explanatory. So what we want to do is when this design type is other, then we want to show this particular text field. So we head into the options, and what we want to do is go and find the ID of this particular design type. So let's go here. We'll go design types. We'll go copy this. So when the design type ID that they just sent to the database is other, then we want this field to appear. And if it's not, we want it to be hidden. So they can select from any of these. They don't need to add anything else. However, if they select other, then it's going to appear. And then they can type this in, and this information will be sent to the other design type text field that we had in the column. So I hope that makes sense as well. And I'll leave this on other now so we can see all the fields. The next thing we want to do is add a choice. And in this case, they're going to be choosing which dimensions they want. So this is going to write to the dimensions ID column. The source is going to be dimensions. The value, again, we want to send the row ID, not the name, to this particular column. The image, well, we don't have an image for the dimensions. And display as can be name. Now, again, we want to change this, not again, but you can change what the choice looks like. So in this case, I prefer to have these little pills instead of a drop down, because there's only a few options. And if you can show them all on screen at once, then good. That's it. So, and we'll make that required as well. So then what we want to do again is add a new text entry. And this is going to be to the custom dimensions field or column that we had. And we want this to appear only when the dimensions ID is, and I'll just add something random for now, but I'll go and find that dimensions ID, which is custom. I'll come back and I'll say only show this component when the custom dimensions pill is selected. So I'll make this required. So it's hidden now because nothing is selected. If I select landscape, nothing happens. If I select custom, this pop-up appears. And I just want to go back and add some placeholder text to these particular inputs. So bear with me for 1 second. You always want to provide as much help or as much direction as you can. Don't make people think. if you can make it as easy as possible for them to make their way through the progress or the process, then that's a good thing. So we can see that that's hidden. If I select that, that's hidden. And if I select that, that's hidden. So you can see it's really clean, and then it only adds additional fields if it's needed. Actually, this shouldn't be required. Sorry. You only add extra fields if it's needed. So we get rid of them, get rid of them. Then we have a few more fields to add. We have the format field. So let's do that. Let's add another choice. And in this case, we're going to be writing to the format ID. We're not going to be using the users as the source. We're going to select formats. Again, the value we want to be the row ID, and the name is fine. And in this case, we can also select it as chips or pills, whatever you call it. This is going to be required as well. So when someone's submitting a request, you're getting the name, you're getting the description, you're asking, do you need design, do you need text on your design? If they select yes, they can enter it. If not, it just remains hidden. You're asking them what design type, you're asking them the dimensions, and then you're asking them what format. And I'll just get rid of this ID. And so this is removing the guesswork or the back and forth communication between you and the client. Now, this is obviously a design example, but you can imagine if it was a website or if it was a video, anything like that, you can get these questions out of the way in a form very easily. So the format, doesn't have any custom fields that need to be shown. So what we're going to do is add some image fields so they can upload assets or examples that can help give you an idea of the type of design they want. So we can actually just add 4 images, because we've said that in the projects they can upload up to 4 different assets. So we jump back into the layout, so we've got all of these assets here. Now, essentially, this form, in terms of the interface, is done. But what we want to do is start setting up some action. So what happens when they submit this particular form? And this is where some logic and some actions start coming into play. So we go to the form, and on submit, what do we want to happen once the user submits? And what we're going to do is create a new action. And this is where you can get a little bit more customized with your app. So on submit, you can select from a number of predefined sort of actions that it can do. It can copy to clipboard something, you can compose an email, you can delete a row, you can do a number of different things. But what we want to do is create a new action, which is a custom action. And a custom action allows you to add any number of these in a sequence. So it's a lot more flexible. So we click create new action, and I'll just get what I've created up on a different screen. And we're going to call this client new request. So what do we want to happen when someone submits? I just chipped my tooth. What do we want to happen when someone submits a new request? And we want a few things to happen. Well, we want the overlay that popped out from the side to close. So that's pretty straightforward. Then we want to show them a notification to let them know that, yeah, it worked. So we're going to say here, the request was submitted. And this is going to be a success icon, right? So we want to let them know, good work, your request was submitted. Then what we want to do is set some column values. So when they were adding all that information was going to get sent to the columns of the row that they've just created by submitting the form. But there's some information that we want to add in the background that we don't need them to select. We can just add it for them, which saves a lot of time. And those particular columns, I'll just get them up here. So we want to set some column values for this item that they've just submitted. And the first one is the client ID. So in the client ID column, we would just want to automatically add the user profile's client ID. So that information is going to be automatically added to that row. Then we want to add the user ID. So we go user profile, row ID. So that is their particular ID. We want the stage to be the queued stage. So when they submit it, we don't want them to select, oh, yes, I want this to go into the queue. We just want to automatically add it to that stage. So what we're going to do is just add a random value for now, and we'll come back and fix this up in a moment. And we want to change the requested date, and we want to set that as the current date and time. So we've changed 4 things. These values are getting automatically assigned to the particular columns. So let's click out, and then we want to just save for now. We're not going to set up the webhooks. We're just going to save for now. We'll go here. We'll get the queued stage ID. We'll go back into edit this thing, and we'll paste that here. So whenever they submit it, the stage ID is going to be the queued stage ID, which means the project will be in the queue. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you an example of how this works just very, very quickly. So this is going to be test project. This is going to be the description. It's going to be a Facebook post. We're going to do it custom, and this is going to be, I don't know, even though it's not custom, let's just say 16 by 9. We want it as a JPEG, and we don't need to upload any assets. But when I click submit, the slide in will close, the notification will appear, there'll be certain columns that'll be values assigned to them, and then in the future, it'll send off a webhook. For now, let's click submit, and you can see request submitted. You can see it's actually popped up here, and you can see that if we go into the projects, test project, it's added the client ID in the background, it's added the requested day, and it's added all the other information that we need, the Facebook post, the custom dimensions, and that sort of thing. So you can see it's very, very easy for clients to submit new projects. So when they click this, they can enter the information, they click submit, and it does it all automatically. Now what we're going to do is continue with the rest of the items, the components, and then we'll come back, and the next thing we'll do is set up the webhooks. So let's continue building this now. So we can close that. That's actually done for now. And I'll just get it up on my other screen. So that's all good. Then we want to set up the hint. So we're going to add another action to this hint, and this is going to be called upgrade plan. So we're going to upgrade, actually we don't need to create a custom action for this. All we want to do is compose an email. So when they click upgrade plan, we want it to compose an email for them. So with a certain subject line and a certain email asking us to upgrade their plan. So who do we want to send this to? Well, since the admin is me, we can just select send it to the admin, so whoever the admin is. This subject line can be I'd like to upgrade my plan, and the body of the email can be the upgrade email body that we selected before. I think I've been staring at a screen too long. So this is going to be an email that'll get created automatically. So I'll just show you how that works now. When they've used up all their requests, they can click this button. It will automatically compose the email for them. It will be directing it towards us, and it's going to say, basically, hi, I'd like to upgrade my plan, blah, blah, blah. So, hi, Michael, I'm currently on the light plan and would like to upgrade. Cheers, Mateo. So that's all that does. It's pretty neat. You can get it to compose any email you want. But for these particular components, we're actually done. Let's jump into the next component, which is the table. So there's a few things we want to set up here. What we want to do is click on the table, head to actions, and we want to deselect these default actions, right? What we want to do is enable advanced actions. And once we do that, we'll be greeted with a little bit more flexible options. So the first thing we want to do is the title bar action. This is this button here. We want this to show a form screen as a slide in. And this is going to be new request. So when they click this, it'll ask them to add a new request. Now, this is going to be an exact replica of the previous form we just created. So I'm not going to bore you with all of that. I'm going to magically make it appear right now. All right, so I've just added all the information. Let's give it a quick test to make sure it's working. So as you can see, when they click this button, all of this appears. And when they click this button, the same thing appears. Now we had to add that twice, unfortunately, but it's necessary to make the app functioning. So let's give it a test, and then this is a description. Yes, they do require text. The design type is going to be other. You can see when they click other, it appears. Custom, it appears, but let's just pick square, JPEG, and then you can select an image to upload, but we don't need to do that right now. Let's click submit. Should show us the notification, should pop up here. Everything's good to go. So let's go to projects, get rid of that, and continue building out the rest of the particular table that we've just created. Now, what we want to do is change a few of, add a few additional actions. So let's get this up on the other screen. Now, when they click this, we want to show not the detail screen, we want to show the edit screen for this item, and we want it to be a slide in. So when they click this button, they can add a new request. When they click this button, they can edit their request. So the edit screen is going to be basically exactly the same as the new request screen. So again, that's going to take a little bit of time to create. So yeah, I'm going to snap that into existence. All right, so we've added all of the fields exactly the same as the new form. This is the edit form, and it has to be exactly the same because they need to be able to change the inputs that they actually first inputted. So you can see here we've got the name, and now it's pulling in the information from the actual project. So you can see here, if they click on this gold and blue royal marble wallpaper, it's pulling in that information, and then they can then edit that particular text. So I'll just give you an example. If we create a new request, this is just gibberish, design type is Instagram, and we can submit that. You can see it's popped up here. When they click this, they can then edit that. Maybe they made a mistake or something like that. Now we want this ability to edit only available when it's in the queued stage. If you accept the request and you start working on it and then they come in and change everything, that's going to lead to a few issues. So what we're going to do is I'll just delete that gibberish project that I created, and we'll come back and we'll continue to tweak this this page. So we're almost done. This is a bit of the repetitive stuff that you have to get through in order to create an app that's working and functioning. But what we want to do is go back to the table, and we want to add a few more actions. So the two last actions we want to add is the ability to edit by also clicking another little button and delete. So what we're going to do is go to the table, go to actions, and when we're going to add some collection item actions. So the first one is going to be edit, and this is easy because We've already created the edit screen in this component, so it's just going to use the exact same edit screen. So what we want to do is show the edit screen as a slide in. So you can see now we hover over it, there's an edit button. When we click that, it's already done. So this is the one time that we don't have to recreate it. So when we click that, you can see that it pops out. And then we want to add one more action, and that is delete request. So when they delete the request, we want to create a new action. And this is going to be a custom action, and it's going to be called client delete request, I believe. No, sorry. We don't want to go straight to this. When someone deletes something, we don't want to delete it straight away. We actually want to give them a prompt to make sure, are you sure you want to delete this? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to edit this button, and we're going to say, don't show a notification. What we want to do is show a new screen. And this new screen, the data is going to come from this particular item. It's going to be a slide in. And what happens is when we click that, it's going to show a totally new screen. So this is not the add form screen. It's not the edit screen for this item. It is a new screen that we can add whatever we want to it. So we'll clear it out. And I'm just going to get it up on my other screen as usual. So I'll click delete request. And then I'll copy this. So what we want to do is add an image. It's going to be from a URL, and it's just going to be something that is kind of warning them. And we want to change the details. We want to change this to delete. Actually, we can say, are you sure? Awesome. Actually, maybe we make it delete request. Delete request. We want to add some text, just a simple text field. And I'll copy this over. And what size did I have it? Was it small? Yeah, I prefer small. And then we're just going to add two buttons. One is going to cancel it, and one is going to actually delete it. So we add a button block. And we want to make this wide. We want it to be, it doesn't matter if it's sent on or not. So this is going to be not Parma. This is just going to say cancel. And this is just going to close the overlay. It's not going to do anything, just close the overlay. The other thing is going to be delete request. And this is going to show the custom action, which is going to be client delete request. And what this will do is basically delete the request and let us know that they've deleted it. So again, we want to close the overlay. Then we want to show them a notification, and it's going to say request deleted. Then we want to delete this item. So we want to delete a row. Which row do we want to delete? Well, this item. And then we want to send a webhook. But again, we're not going to do that now. We're going to finish the page. Then we'll get onto the webhooks. And then we'll come back and actually finish this page. So we just save that. So now you can see when they want to delete a request, if they click this, that's to edit, sorry. If they click this edit button, it'll also edit. And if they click delete request, then it's going to say, hey, are you sure? You can cancel or you can actually delete the request. So I don't want to delete this request because we need examples. But if they click that, it would delete the request. But in this case, we're going to cancel. Now, in terms of the page, we are almost done. We just have to tweak this last table, and then we have to adjust some of the visibility settings because we don't want all of this to show at once. You know, why is it new request button here, new request button here, this and that? So we'll finish the last table, which is the existing request, and then we'll come back and change all of the visibility. So Again, let's jump into this table. And what we want to do is this particular table is going to show the details screen. So we've done a whole bunch of different things. We're showing a new form screen, we're showing an edit screen, we're showing a new screen, which is for the delete request. And then we're going to show a details screen, which is similar to, for example, a new screen, but actually using the information of the item itself, and whenever you access that item from anywhere else in the app, it's going to show the same details screen. So that'll make sense in a little bit, I hope. But what we want to do is on existing requests, we want to, when they click it, we want to show a detail screen. So we go actions, we get rid of these default, we go to enable advanced, and we want to leave it on this. So when they click this, it's going to show the detail screen. What we don't want, however, is it to jump to a totally new page. So we go here, and we want it to be a slide in, and we want the data to be this particular item. So when we click it now, it's going to bring in that information. So let's start creating all of the elements that we're going to show on the details screen. Now the details screen is going to show a number of different things at different times depending on what stage the project is at. So the first thing we want to do is put in all the components that are going to appear when the project is in progress. And this one's pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is add a container, and we can name this container actually. We can say this is the in progress container, and this container is going to show when the status or the stage of the project is in progress. So we want to add a title. Let me just set this up. So we want to add a title, and we want the name to be the stage name, and we want the image to be the stage icon. We want it to be extra small, and we want the background of this. Let me jump back to the container. We want the background of this container to be the accent. So you can see here, this beautiful dark wallpaper, the status is queued, so this is appearing. Then what we want to do is I'll just copy this image URL. We want them to know that we're working. You drag this into the container. We want them to know that we're working on this project. So what we're going to do is change it from a dynamic value, which is the client logo, to just a static one, which is this little dude typing away. So we want them to know that we're actively working on their project. And then we want to add a hint that simply says exactly what we want them to know. So when they click this item and it's in the queued stage, this is going to appear. So it's going to show them that it's queued. It's going to say, we're working on your design. Oh no, sorry, in progress. My bad. Yeah, let me just quickly adjust this project, and we'll say that it is in progress. And one thing I forgot to do was filter these tables based on the status of the project. So let's go back and do that now. And that'll make things a little bit easier to understand. So we go into the options, and we want this to only show items that are in the queued stage. So we go here, we filter data, and when the stage ID is this, we want it to appear here. And for this one, when the stage ID is not this, we want it to show these. And there's a few more little things we want to do. The first of which is we want to just add another layer of security. So we want to show it only when the client ID of the project is equal to the client ID of the user using the application. So you don't actually need to do that because of the row owners that we set up earlier, but it's just an extra little layer of security. Then the sort order, we want to select, instead of when it was added to the sheet, we want to select the sort order that we created earlier, and we want it to be descending, because we, if you remember the stages, we put the order in reverse order. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just speaking absolute gibberish, but when we were selecting when we were creating the stages, we put in this number that reflects the order we want it to display in reverse descending order, or descending order, not reverse descending. That would be ascending. So anyhow, we want to just select those things, and we don't want a search bar on the new requests because they'll only ever have maybe 4 or 12 requests. You don't need to search through it. You'll be able to see it. So that's all we need to do for that. And here we want to kind of do the same. We want to say that we want to sort these in the sort order by descending order. So you can see that the completed projects will show at the bottom because they're the lowest number, and then the in progress will be the top of this next table. So it's kind of chronological, basically. Although you can accept and request projects at different times, and so you want them to reflect that that status. So I believe for this one, we don't need to set any more settings. We can set the same sort of security measure. Again, not really necessary because of the because of the row owners that we set up earlier. But never hurts. And in this case, we want them to be able to also filter by the stage name. So they can select any of the stages, and then they can also search through gold. And if we search for dark, nothing will come up. So let's finish this details page. Might feel like we're jumping back and forth, but that's generally how it happens. You're never going to do things exactly linearly. So jump back into the details page. So now you can see that this is in progress, and look how hard this little cat is working. He's typing away, he's creating the design, and it gives them a notification. We'll let you know as soon as the draft is complete. So now what we want to do is move on to the next container. And I'm just going to build them all out first and then change the visibility of them in a moment. So we add another container, and this is called the feedback needed container. So what we want to do here is add an image. And in this case, the image is going to be the draft that you upload. So we add the draft, and right now it's empty. So what I might do is just add something temporarily into the draft image section, even though it would only show if they're in the feedback stage. So let's go low code, YouTube, freelancer requests. So now it shows the draft. Voila, finally. So what we want to do is, this will be hidden. So this will be at the top of the page. And what we want to do is basically ask them for their feedback. So we'll send them a link in the email that will direct them to this page, and it will automatically open this, and then it'll show them the draft, and it'll say, okay, what do you think, basically? So what we do want to do is before we start adding other fields, we want to, when they click this image, we want it to open a link. And we want that link to be the draft image itself. So when they click this, it opens up a higher resolution version. Then we want to add a selection. So we go choice, sorry, not selection, choice. And we want this to send the data to the draft feedback ID. And it's the same concept as we were doing before. So feedback, we want it to be the row ID, we want it to be the icon showing, and we want them to be able to select it as pills. So we send them the link, they get it, it opens this up. This is obviously hidden. Then they can select any option that they think is relevant. Are they happy and they don't have any feedback? Are they happy but they have some feedback for us? Or are they unhappy and they want to tell us about it? And based on that, we're going to hide and show the next field, which is a text entry. And this is going to be the draft feedback text. And we want to make this big. And I'll get the placeholder that I created earlier. So, if they select anything other than this, we want this to appear. So this is where they can actually leave their feedback. Then I want to add an image picker to this particular container. And I want them to send this image to the draft feedback image. Right, so they can leave some text. They can also submit an image. Maybe it's got annotations on it or arrows or text or move this here, this and that. So we want them to be able to do that. And we want to just explain why that image picker is there. So what we're going to do is just add some text that explains it. So I'll copy this. I'll paste this in. I'll make it small. And so here we just say a picture says 1,000 words. So if you find it easier to simply explain the changes you want via an annotated image, you can upload that image above. So these particular fields we want to hide if the draft feedback ID is happy with no feedback. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah, we can do that now. So what I'm going to do is go and find that particular ID. So for the happy no feedback, we want this to show only when the draft feedback ID is not this and the draft feedback ID is not empty. So it's empty at the moment. That's why it's not showing. So that means it's working. So we want to do it again when the draft feedback ID is not this and or. Is it and or? I think it's and. And it's not empty. Yeah, I believe it's and. So this needs to be this. And then finally, when the draft feedback ID is not this and the draft feedback ID is not empty. So you can see that it's all hidden now. And when they select this, everything remains hidden. When they select this, it pops up, and also when they select this, it pops up. So we're looking good. There's just one thing we need to do, which is add some buttons where they can either submit the feedback or close the overlay. Maybe they're not ready to submit the feedback. So we'll go in and we'll add that button block to this particular container. And the primary is going to be a button that says submit feedback. And what this is going to do, I'll set that up later. I'll just add the other button for now, which is cancel. And this is going to just close the overlay. So we've got submit feedback and cancel. What we want to do is set up a custom action that happens when they click the submit feedback button. So we go here, and we don't want it to open a link. We want to create a new action. This is going to be client, and this is going to be draft feedback submitted. All right. So when they click that button, what do we want to happen? Well, again, we just want to close the overlay. Then we want to show them a notification, and we want to say feedback submitted. Then we want to set some column values. So what we want to do is, in fact, all we want to do is set the stage ID to finalizing. So if I just click save and I go here and I get the stages, so it would currently be in this stage. So the ID would be this. When they submit the feedback, we want to switch it to this status. So we come in here and we say the stage ID is now finalizing. And again, we're going to add a webhook, but we're going to set that up after. So we click save, and that is essentially done. This particular container. Then the last container, sorry, not the last container, the second last container is the finalizing container. So we can say this is finalizing. And it's very similar to the in progress container, where we're just going to show a funny image and a status. So actually, you know what we can do is just duplicate it. Drag this down. We can call this finalizing. We can change the image to another employee. Okay, this guy's working even faster. And we're going to change the hint to this. So we've taken your feedback on board and are finalizing your design. We'll let you know when it's done. So when the project is in progress, this is what they'll see. When it needs feedback, this is what they will see. Once they submit it, it'll be finalizing, and then this is what they will see. Now this is dynamic, so because it's currently in progress, I'll just change it just so you can see. Because this project is currently, see, this is what will appear. So you don't have to worry too much about that showing in progress. For this particular container, that's all we need. There's one last container we add to the detail screen, and that is the container that appears when the project is complete. So let's add that container, and we want to add an image, and this is going to be the final image. So what I'm going to do is actually go in the back end and add that now so you can see it, but I'll just add an action where we open link, and the link we open is the final. So when it doesn't appear now, but once I upload an image, I know this is time consuming, but I figured if I can show as much detail, it will help you. So we're almost done with this page. So you can see here, it's showing the final image. Then what we want to do is show a text field. And this text field is going to be writing data to final feedback. Now, I don't believe I have a placeholder here. Yes, I do. Okay, so The final feedback. The placeholder is we're constantly trying to improve, so please take some time to let us know what you think. Of course, you can change this, but this is what I've put in so far. Then what we want to do is show a text field. We can drag that above it actually. This is going to be text. This is going to be final feedback. I'm sorry if you can't see what I'm doing off screen, but we're going to make that an extra small heading. And we're going to add a hint. And the hint is going to be their feedback. We'll make it neutral. And then what we want to do is add a button block. And the primary is going to be a custom action. But I'll do that in a second. So we're going to say here, submit feedback. And we'll just leave that as is for now. And this is going to be edit feedback. And so when they click edit feedback, all it's going to do is set some column values. So it's, there we go. Don't know why that happens, but we can reopen it. Okay, so let's jump straight back into it. So when they click edit feedback, it's going to set some column values. And it's going to say final feedback submitted is true. And that's that checkbox that we were looking at before. So, yep, when they click edit feedback, it'll set that checkbox as true, which will hide and show each of these accordingly. Then for the submit feedback, it's a little bit more complicated. So what we want to do is create a new action, and this is going to be client final feedback submitted. So again, we want to do a few things. We want to close the overlay. We want to show them a notification. So we want to say feedback submitted. We want to set some column values, right? We want to set the final feedback submitted as true. I actually have to go back and change that one to false, I just realized. And then we're going to do a whole bunch of webhook actions, but we'll do that later. I want to come back and change this to false. And now we want to set some visibility rules for these buttons. So we only want to show the submit feedback button when the submit feedback submitted is not checked. Okay, and this edit button, we only want to show this edit button when the submit final feedback submitted is checked. So this will change it. Then if we come back, you'll see that it's able to be edited. Then we can click that. And so what that's doing is checking, unchecking that final box. And then according to whether it's checked or not, we want to show or hide these fields, these components. So we want this component to show when the final feedback submitted is checked. And we want this text field to show when the final feedback submitted is not checked. So since it's not checked, you can type in, this is my final feedback. They click submit, bada bing, bada boom. If they want to come back and edit it, they can do so, right? What I want to do is actually remove this title because we don't need it. And that'll be a lot cleaner now. So when we click in, you can see that this is what it looks like when they have submitted, and this is what it looks like when they haven't submitted. And so the last thing besides the webhooks is to hide and show these depending on what stage the project is at. So we are almost there. We just got a few more things. So this in progress container, we only want this to appear when the status is in progress. So we go to options, we go to visibility, and we say when a stage ID is in progress. We get the others. So when it needs feedback, we only want this feedback needed container to show when the stage ID is that. When it's finalizing, we only want this column to show when the project is finalizing. So when the stage ID is finalizing. And this last container, which we didn't name, but we can call this complete, we only want this to show when we, on the back end, have marked this project stage ID is complete. Yeah. So that, as far as I can, no, it's not. Almost. We have to show and hide these last few things. So let's do that. Let's only show this top few components when the queued count equals 0. So when they haven't submitted anything to the queue, or they haven't created any requests at all, and that would mean the queue count would be empty, we want to hide that. We only want to show that when the queue count is 0. Maybe I mixed that up, but we only want to show that top title component when there's nothing queued or they haven't created anything. In this case, you can see there's something queued, so it's hiding that top component because we don't need to repeat those two titles. The same goes for this particular one here. So we only want to show this component when the queued count is 0 and the requests left doesn't equal 0, right? So in this case, they do have some requests left, and there is something in the queue, so it's being hidden right now. This last upgrade plan, we want to only show this component when the number of requests left equals 0. So you can see now that's hidden because Matteo Morbello has some requests left. We can just check their thing and you can see that they have 2 requests left, so it's hiding that component. Now, as far as I'm concerned, unless I've forgotten something, this entire page, which is the most complex page, is done. If I've forgotten something, I'll come back and do it. But that was the most complicated page. It took the most amount of time. It is probably a lot to process. So if you have to jump back and go over it, you're more than welcome to. The next thing we're going to do is the webhooks. So let's get into that. If you enjoyed that video or you found it useful, then I highly suggest you subscribe and hit the bell icon because I have a ton of low-code videos and tutorials in the pipeline for you. And if you like the idea of becoming a low-code developer who can create anything their mind can imagine without code, head to lowcode.com and sign up for one of our online bootcamps. See you next time.